Now that looks nice. Okay, we got it back from the powder coater and man, it looks good. So remember, we left all the pinion races and bushings and bearings from original. So what we're going to do now is take all these old ones out, both the axle bearings and the pinion drive bearing, which is where it was leaking really bad, and these races. And then we'll put the new ones in. Simple as that. Time to rebuild a rear end. You certainly don't need any special tools here, just something to knock those bearing raceways out. Just a few light taps with a stainless steel pipe and a 5-pound hammer gets what you need. Rent you a puller from Advanced Auto. Man, I'm telling you, this thing was stuck. I don't know if it's because the powder coating was in there, but this one was very difficult to get off, as you can see. This side went a lot smoother. Got the technique down, pops right out. Okay, here we're setting the main bearing racer for the pinion drive. With that guide snug in place, now we can set the main bearing and seal. This was what was leaking pretty badly on the rear end originally, but just a little cleanup, a little bit of oil, and you're ready for the new seal. Let's get our bigger ones so it fits good. Flipping the housing over, now you can do the inner raceway. Alright, we got to get this bearing off of the pinion drive, so it's a little bit sketchy here. We got the bearing plate, press plate from a Harbor Freight kit. Let's see if this will work. All that just so we can find out what shim size is, because this is all new. Okay, now we're going to, so this is the new pinion. We can really tell the difference in the size and the gearing. So press that off just to get this shim, so that shim can go in there. We get the new bearing. Gotta reset this. I mean, it's like that much. Be careful about tightening this too much because that shaft is tapered. So loosen this up, readjust it. There we go. Okay, now we're ready to put the new pinion in the axle housing. So the first thing we're going to do is put plenty of grease on it. Then the new crush sleeve goes on it. There's like 3 or 4. Came with 2. They're both the same size. And then you want an axle flange, you want to check it, make sure there's no groove here. If there is, they make a cup that you can put on and replace it. So I cleaned all this up. I don't have a groove, so we're good to go. So in she goes. And now we'll put the axle flange on. Okay, so I don't have the companion flange tool, so you see me trying to wedge with that breaker bar to tighten this up. So we have to use this, a beam type torque wrench that tells us the rotational force on this axle. So we want 8 to 14 pounds. We're not even close, but we want to check it as we go. And so another tool you can rent from, you buy it, but you just rent it from Advanced Auto. And so we won't over tighten it because it's crushing that crush sleeve in there and it's getting everything tight. So we're not close. We got to do some more tightening. I have to figure something else out. That something else was to put this thing on the ground to use as much leverage as possible. It probably would be easier on the car to do this, but as you can see, I'm gonna slow it down here and show you how I had to put the brute force of my weight and cheater pipes and puller pipes and pull bars, whatever I could find to get this thing tight, because it actually ends up being quite tight, like 21 rotational force pounds on that torque wrench, which after these videos were shot, I had to continue to tighten it even further. Okay, now we gotta get these differential bearings off, and there's no way to press them off. So we're gonna take a bearing seat thing, so it sits there, and a 3-jaw plier. See if this will work. Shocker, it doesn't work. I had to get this 2-jaw puller, bearing puller, rented it from Advanced Auto, and to get this bearing guide off of the differential. Now I've got to get this one off the bottom too. So this has been quite a task at this setup. So let's see if we can get it. There it comes. Okay, while I got this in the vise on this side, before I take this other bearing and guide off the bottom, I'm gonna go ahead and take this ring gear off. So press it off. This press is well worth the money, and there's no way you can rebuild this rear end without one. I'm gonna try, I thought taking the ring gear off would fit my vise, but it wouldn't, so I'm gonna go this way, but I'm gonna try pulling it off with the bearing and cage intact. Yeah, and I'm wearing slides, so it's probably best to wear shoes in the garage. Okay, we're gonna press the new bearings on. We clean the sludge off and put a little bit of gear oil around it, and now we're gonna press it in. Okay, I was using this bearing seal driver as a blank plate to push it down, and there's still a small gap down here because it sits just below the shaft. So I got this old bearing raceway here from the old one that fits around it, so that's a good way to use it to push it on down the rest of the way. Now, there we go, fully seated. Now let's do the other side. Okay, now we're putting the new ring gear on. You can see the 355. The old ring gear has 327. So that goes away. And we don't need to press it because we're going to torque this on in 2 stages to pull it up. So I'm just going to get the bolt started, and we're going to put it in the vise and torque it in. We got these loosely snugged in. Ring gear's snug tight. So the first is 35 foot-pounds. So we'll do it in pattern. Now it's 97 to 102 foot-pounds. I'm going with 100. Here we go. Okay, now we're ready to put the differential back in the rear end housing, the axle housing. So remember, we kept the right and left separated, and this is the shim that goes in between where the differential sits in the axle housing. So we're going to put a little gear oil on our bearings like we did before on the other ones. Now we'll check the backlash. Okay, so we got a mag base set up. So we're touching to see the backlash, which is basically what's the gap between the pinion gear and the ring gear. So we want anywhere from 8 to 10 thousandths of an inch. You can see we're right at 8, maybe a little more. So now we'll check the tooth pattern by putting marking stuff on here and we'll see how it looks, because that's perfect. Okay, we'll go ahead and reinstall the bearing caps and torque those down. So we'll clean these, the guides here. Reinstall these, making sure that the marks we made at the beginning are the right ones and then in the right direction. Arrows point out. And we'll torque this to 100 foot-pounds, just like we did the ring gear. And now we're going to check the tooth pattern with the supplied marker. Okay, ran it through and you can see that I've got marker material in the middle of the teeth, which is exactly where we want them, both front and back. So we are in good shape with the rear end. Now we gotta do is reassemble the axles. We'll go ahead and put the axle bearings in and seals, reinstall the axles, and we are done with the rear end. On to the next thing, the engine. Okay, we're down to the last piece, which is the axle bearing and seal. We'll go ahead and get our seal bearing setter. I'm gonna clean this off in here with some acetone. We'll set that in there and set the seal and do the other side. Okay, it's back together completely, other than the cover, which we got a new cover for it. But we're gonna clean this off with a wire brush so it's a nice, good, smooth surface for our new cover, rear end cover, differential cover, whatever you want to call it. So we'll go ahead and fill it up now and not worry about having to deal with the plug. Okay, we're ready to put the cover on. And so the axle girder cover, I'm actually going to run a little bit of silicone to help seal it off. So it's for the capacity, it's 2.12 quarts, which is essentially the 2 Royal Purple quarts I did, plus the friction modifier, gives you exactly what you need. Okay, so this Ford Racing has load bolts. That's for the bearing caps. So what you want to do is back those out because they have to be torqued specifically. So you back these out and then we'll put the bolts on. Okay, so I got to run all these washers up because they're really tight. Okay, the first one was just a little stubborn. So we got them all in and now we're going to torque them to 25 foot-pounds. Okay, these load bolts, you just tighten them up so they make contact with the bearing cap. Right there, and about 5 pounds, which is about that. We'll tighten the lock nuts up. Now we clean our sweat off of it.
All right, it's wrapped up, and I tell you what, I can't be more pleased. This thing has turned out great. LMR has got a great kit for it, and that kit is actually the front and rear main bearings off of GT500, as well as the pinion gear and the ring gear. So now we got 355 gearing off of GT500. This thing's ready to rock and roll. With the powder coating and everything else, I mean, this is a weekend project, basically. It took me the weekend. I was missing the axle bearings, got those in, and literally put the thing together in about an hour. But it looks great. I'm ready to run it right now and see how it works, but we got to get the kit in and get it put on. It turned out great though.
Now there's a JWD. Not one drop has landed for several hours. When I had the old one, when I had it like that before I rebuilt it, all of the grease leaked out into my floor. JWD.
I mean, it's like that much